Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and today's show is presented by Manscaped. How many guys, when they woke up this morning, they were like, I wouldn't mind getting a little bit lucky? Well, if your shamrock hasn't been rubbed recently, then guess what? I got something that's going to get you to the over the rainbow. Shout out to Manscaped for hooking up the nation here. All I need you to do, use code Raiders at manscaped.com. That way you're going to get 20% off and free shipping on the best male grooming products out there. So coming up here on the show, are the Las Vegas Raiders interested in Kendall Fuller? I'll give you my opinion on whether or not it would be a good idea to sign him and how interested the Silver and Black are. Justin Fields trade, is it still alive? The Chicago Bears quarterback continues to get linked to the Silver and Black, but does it make any sense? And then the Raiders starting quarterback odds. Right now, Aidan O'Connell is the favorite to be the starter, but does that actually make any sense? I'll give you all of my 2 cents on all of this. But remember, I want you to subscribe to the Raiders Report because I want you, when you watch the show, to know more about the Raiders than your friends and your family. Like, I can remember back in my old school days with my family, we would argue about fantasy football, and I took a lot of pride. I took a lot of, courage to be like, no, I'm going to put my flag right here, like this is my take, and I'm not afraid to stand up for it. I'll also say this. I want people to watch the show, and don't get me wrong, we're going to have some fun. We're going to get wild. We're going to get crazy. It's what we do. But I also want you to be able to learn something. So if you have the opportunity to learn something about the Raiders, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and if you don't learn anything after a week, unsubscribe. You got nothing to lose. So the first story coming up here is this. Are the Las Vegas Raiders interested in cornerback Kendall Fuller? He is set to hit the open market once free agency begins, and the tampering period begins on March 11th at, 12 noon, I guess, Eastern time. We're going to be live a little bit before then, so be on the lookout for that. For all the new people that have been watching the show, you might not know what I'm about to do here. So we have something called a Raiders Report rumor meter. If I give a rumor 0 just win babies, it's tuck rule, tuck that. It ain't going to happen. If I say something's 1 just win baby, think of it about 25% chance of happening. 2 just win babies, 50%. 3 just win babies, 75%. And if I give something 4 just win babies, it means it is 100% likely. And here we go. Are the Raiders interested in Kendall Fuller? Hell yeah, they are. 4 just win babies. Believe it, baby. I am telling you right now that Las Vegas is targeting the cornerback from Washington, Kendall Fuller. And this story rolls in from Raider Scout. Some of you know him as Tristan on Twitter. And he is saying that the Raiders will be big players in the market for Fuller. I 100% believe Scout. He's one of the most tight-end guys around the Silver and Black. I also am a good person in terms of reading the tea leaves. You got to be able to know what exactly is happening around the Las Vegas Raiders. And I made a video 2 days ago at this point, which was around Antonio Pierce being interested and calling it a priority and finding a cornerback 1. Well, guess what? Kendall Fuller is a cornerback 1, and I believe that he's the top corner on the market, with Jalen Johnson getting tagged, with L'Jarius Sneed getting tagged. To me, the number 1 guy that is the top corner in free agency is Kendall Fuller. Now, does this mean that the Raiders are going to sign him? No, it does not mean that. There's going to be a lot of suitors for Fuller. And I do think that the Raiders are also going to look in the draft for a potential corner. I know for a fact that they like Terrion Arnold a lot. Quinion Mitchell is a name to keep in mind. Rakestraw is another name that I've been hearing circulating around the Raiders. Bottom line, though, is this. If the Raiders want to go, well, what if we plan on giving up a lot of draft picks for a quarterback? It's something that we've talked about before. And then you don't think that you're going to have any of those top picks to be able to go get a corner. Could that then show your hand of, all right, we're going to go out and sign one of the top corners in free agency? Fuller at 5'11", 200 pounds, 79 tackles, 9 PBUs, 2 INTs last season. He was one of the highest graded corners according to PFF. And this is one of those dudes that's been able to play over 1,000 snaps in 3 straight seasons, which I do think is a very important thing for this Raiders defense, considering the fact of how many different players that they're going to have in that secondary. Meek Robertson, gone. Marcus Peters obviously is no longer a part of this team. The only 2 corners that I have legitimate faith in as it stands right now, it is Nate Hobbs, and then the other name is Jack Jones. Besides that, the Raiders need to be able to find somebody that can not only be a legit starter, but can also give them a little bit of versatility, because that's something that Patrick Graham continues to look for in his corners. And if there's one thing that I'll look for, the number 1 most important thing when I look at PFF grades, it's coverage. Like, Yeah, don't get me wrong. I want a corner that can tackle. I want a corner that can get after the quarterback, but I want a corner that can frickin' cover. And Kendall Fuller last season might have been the only bright spot on that Washington Commanders defense, considering how bad that Commanders defense was and how good Fuller is. Him getting really close to age 30, this might be some of the best football that he's about to play. So for me personally, Kendall Fuller would be a great fit with the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm not going to go out and try to break the bank on him, and I don't anticipate that he gets a contract over $14 million a year. I'll admit, because Snead and Jalen Johnson are no longer a part of this whole conversation, he might be, the price tag might go up a little bit. If the Raiders got to spend more than $14-15 million on a corner, I'll say no to that. I would rather them invest that money on a DJ Raider, Leonard Williams, somebody like a Christian Wilkins. Hell, let's even go all in right for Chris Jones. I think Fuller is a hell of a player, but that does not mean that the Raiders are going to sign. All I'm saying is they will 100% be looking at him in free agency. So here's my next question here, and I want to know, how likely are you to recommend this show, whether it's to your dad, your mom, another Raiders fan, anybody out there, when you talk about the Raiders Report, because I'm sure there's got to be at some instance that you mention this show to somebody, say, hey, go check out this show. I enjoy it. I want you to give me an honest assessment. I don't want to just see tens because you want me to be happy. No, this is a family friendship. The only way that you legitimately get better at what you're doing, the only way that we are going to continue to get better as a show is if you give me an honest grade here, okay? If you do give me anything lower than, let's say, a 5, give me the reason why. I want to know, and then that way I can go and try to correct it. So how likely are you to recommend this show? Scale for me from 1 to 10. I'm going to be looking down in the comments. Let's go to the next story coming up here on the Raiders Report. And are they going to be trading for Bears quarterback Justin Fields? I have said this once. I have said this twice. I don't know how many ways else I can say this. The Raiders are not going to be trading for Bears quarterback Justin Fields. Tuck rule, tuck that. I get the fact that Fields has been linked to this team over and over and over again. I get the idea that just a month and a half ago, I said that Justin Fields was the most likely quarterback that the Raiders could have. As soon as they went out, and I mean as soon as they went out and hired Luke Getsy, that went from a big old fat 0% chance of happening. So coming up here, I'm going to give you a lot more reasons why it is a zero goose egg chance of the Raiders trading for Fields. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are still going to hold out hope. That's fine, but it's not going to happen. You know what I am hoping happens tonight, Chip? If I get out of here at a good amount of time, I shave my shamrock, and I'll tell you what, talk of the morning to you, Alex. I got something special for you, and I got something special for the nation as well. Head on over to manscaped.com, use code Raiders for 20% off and free shipping on the best male grooming products out there. This year, don't just chase rainbows. Make your own pot of gold and groom your little leprechaun with the leaders and below the kilt care. Say goodbye to your clover forest with Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0 and let your confidence shine bright. Embrace the luck of the Irish and join 10 million men worldwide that trust Manscaped. Head over to manscaped.com. Use code Raiders for 20% off and free shipping. I've seen some Raider fans recently say, Mitch, I don't know why you're doing all these leprechaun and St. Patrick's Day reads. Well, guess what? The reason, it's simple. It's because we're in March, and I know this. I'm not trying to get into too March Madness, but I do know that I don't want my Ken Stabler rocking around in a hell of a bush down there. So, equipped with a dual LED spotlight, you can navigate your shamrock patch in peace. Worried you'll make a mess? Fear not, this wonder is waterproof. So, nation, in case you were, playing with your leprechaun down there, get 20% off and free shipping with code Raiders at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with code Raiders at manscaped.com this St. Patrick's Day. Make sure your little hairy leprechaun is luckier than ever with Manscaped. So I love using all the Manscaped products here. One of the products that I do try to use, especially like tonight, for those that don't know, Alex and I, we are going to the venue that we're going to be doing our vows at, which is why I got to get out of this live show a little bit earlier. And anytime we do something like this, I'll be transparent with you. I put on my ball deodorant. I want, if there is even a chance that I get that lucky, that if she gets down there, it doesn't smell like Famunda cheese. It smells good. And if you don't know what that is, then I need you to look it up. So again, shout out to Manscaped for hooking up the nation here at manscaped.com, code Raiders. All right, let's keep it moving here around Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears. And if you are watching this live, there's some Bears breaking news that doesn't really impact the Raiders. Maybe it does. Jalen Johnson, he just signed a 4-year, $76 million deal with the Bears, which if I'm Kendall Fuller, I'm looking at that deal and I go, I'm not going to get that, but I still want a hefty price tag this offseason. All right, let's continue to talk here about Fields and the Bears. Fields obviously always gets linked to the Raiders, and recently in a interview, or I believe it was on the radio, Jason Fitz had some interesting words to say around Fields, and I 100% agree with him. I know that the Raiders hired Luke Getsy, who was the Bears OC the past 2 seasons, and the Raiders hired Getsy because they believe that Fields was the issue. So I know that there's a lot of connections, and I'll show you all the connections and why Fields is just going to continually get linked to the Raiders over and over and over and over again. But for people that legitimately follow the Raiders closely, and when you watch this show, I hope every time I bring up Justin Fields, some of you are like, Jesus, they're not going to do it, Mitch. And I hear you, but we get new people that watch this show all the time, and the amount of times I get asked, are the Raiders going to trade for Justin Fields? I feel like I have to continue to talk about it, and I feel like I'm just beating a dead horse at this point. But this is what Jason Fitz had to say on Justin Fields to the Raiders, and I 100% agree with it. I talked to somebody that knows the Bears in and out and has covered the Bears for a while. That is really familiar with the organization. And they told me very, very clearly that there is no relationship between Getsy and Justin Fields. I asked this question weeks ago, hey, what are the chances? And the answer I got was not just a no, the answer I got was a hell no. And I'm sitting up here telling you the exact same thing. There is no way that the Raiders hired Luke Getsy and that they're going to go out and they're going to trade for Justin Fields. Yes, the reports are that Fields' trade value might be a little bit lower than expected. That's totally fine. And I know why Fields makes sense to the Raiders. The Raiders are picking at 13. I don't know if we're going to be able to trade up and go get a quarterback. It's not going to be very expensive. He makes $6 million this year. If you give him a 5th-year option, it's going to be $22 million next year, and it's only going to cost you, from what it sounds like right now, a 3rd-round pick. He does fit what AP wants in terms of being a quarterback that's mobile, and it does fit the Raiders' offense just in terms of like a power run game. I know that multiple Raiders players like him, and he's got a great relationship with Champ Kelly, who drafted him in Chicago. But, we got to get it through our heads here. Justin Fields was at one point a top option. And yes, the Raiders at one point were looking into trading for him. But the moment that they hired Luke Getsy, it just squashed it right there. On top of that, I know for a fact that the Raiders are looking in the draft. I know for a fact that the Raiders' plan A is Jayden Daniels, and the entire world knows that it's Jayden Daniels. But to me, if you're going to go out and you're going to get another quarterback, you're either you might as well just sign Russell Wilson to $1.21 million, who's a better quarterback than Justin Fields, and you don't have to give up any draft capital, or you just wait for the draft and you go, all right, here's my plan A and Jayden Daniels. All right, well, maybe I can't do that. Then you look at your next tier of quarterbacks, which is, for me, Michael Penix Jr. After that, that's where you get into the Bo Nixes. That's where you get into the J.J. McCarthy, so on and so forth. Bottom line is, the Raiders aren't fucking traded for Justin Fields, so can we please stop talking about it? Coming up next here, some Raiders quarterback starting odds. And anytime I see odds that are released, my job, what I really like to do is I like to try to follow the path, because I do think Vegas Vegas knows, right? Vegas knows a lot more than what they probably get credit for. So when I see new odds and the odds jump out to me, I'm like, why are the odds like that? And then I'll go and I'll start doing my digging a little bit. It's how I find a lot of my smoke, which leads to fire. Before I tell you what the Raiders starting quarterback odds are for this upcoming season, Raiders Friday Happy Hour starts 4 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. I don't drink Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays on this show. I got to try to get a little bit skinnier here for my wedding coming up in a year and a half, which I know it's a long ways away. Fridays, though, we let our hair down a little bit. Fridays, we let the weekend get kicked off. I'm not sure if I got Chugs or Chip with me on Friday, but either way, we're going to be partying, and I want you to be tuned in with us. Let's go to the final story here. It's around Aidan O'Connell, and he is the favorite to start for the Raiders according to Vegas. I know what the odds are, and I'm going to give this one just win, baby, and I'm going to say that there's a 10% chance that O'Connell is the Raiders starting quarterback this upcoming season. And when you see odds, and when the odds have Aidan at what they do, you should probably look at it and consider. And I understand that some people who sent me this are like, well, Mitch, if he wasn't a legitimate chance to be the starter, this isn't what the odds would be. And that's not that I totally disagree. I mean, I didn't give it no just win, babies. There is a chance that Aidan O'Connell is the Raiders starting quarterback, but again, it's got to be less than 10% chance. He did start 10 games last season. He is liked in the locker room by basically every single guy on the team. However, though, the only reason, and this is just the truth, the only reason he is the favorite to be the starting quarterback, it's because he is the only option on the team as it stands right now. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get cut. Brian Hoyer is going to get cut. Anthony Brown is just a backup quarterback who you can put on your practice squad. So when you think about Vegas and the way that they make odds, I'm not really surprised that Aidan is the favorite here. And when you look at him, again, plus 125, I look at those odds right there, and it's any rookie quarterback. So that could be Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr., Spencer Rattler, Bo Nix at plus 250. I'm betting my house on that plus 250 right there, and I know I'm making money. I'm not touching Justin Fields. Sam Howell is an interesting name that I've brought up here before. Zach Wilson better not happen. I still believe that Baker Mayfield ends up going back to Tampa Bay, but some of the names that have been circulating are, one, Ryan Tannehill got mentioned yesterday by Vic Tafur, and I like Vic. He's done a lot of good stuff in his career, but anytime that somebody says Ryan Tannehill is a better quarterback than Russell Wilson, it really makes me just scratch both of my heads. Let's talk about, though, the latest going on with Russell, who's got plus 800 odds. I did think that Wilson potentially joining the Raiders was something to look at, and even though the Pittsburgh Steelers said that they're rolling with Kenny Pickett, today it was announced that Wilson is meeting with the Steelers. Yesterday, it was leaked that the number one team that Wilson wants to play for is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The more and more I'm going, I think that now, based off of just the last 24 hours of everything going on around the NFL, it sounds like Russell Wilson to me is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Another name to keep in mind, Kirk Cousins was been linked to the Raiders just based on connections and Devontae Adams talking about him. I thought Justin Fields could potentially go to Atlanta. Kirk Cousins is going to be the Atlanta Falcons starting quarterback this upcoming season. That one you can book. So to me, Antonio Pierce, he wants a franchise quarterback for the next 10 years. He also said that he doesn't want, just a Band-Aid at the QB position. I love Aidan. Aidan's going to be a hell of a backup quarterback, but Aidan O'Connell is the definition of putting a Band-Aid at the quarterback position. You cannot go into next season with a QB that's not a top 32 quarterback in the NFL. It's just malpractice. It would be a failed offseason by Telesco and Antonio Pierce. And for two people that really want to prove themselves and they know that they don't have a long leash, I am so confident that the Raiders are not going to go back with Aidan O'Connell, and that is why I'm saying, despite the odds, you better put your money on drafting a QB because that's the route the Raiders are going to go.